Well, this is it. Good morning. It's been a while, Nelson, since we have done a duo critique video. And uh, First of all, I'm Adam Fitzgerald, host of the Dark and Hour, co-host of the Dark and Hour with Richard Cox. And with me today, for me, needs no introduction, but for those who don't know, DJ Thermal Detonator, a filmmaker, 9/11 researcher, and one of my personal friends and experts in the world regarding the events of September 11, 2001 and areas related to it. Nelson, wow, long time. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, and glad to be back on. It's been quite a while, maybe even like, I don't know, well over a year at least.
Yeah, it does. You know what? Time has been flying left and
Yeah, it
right,
has.
and yeah, it's been a long time since we did a dual critique video. And for those, this is going to be a critique. It's not. I don't know, critique video. Yeah, it would be a critique video of Jason Bermas. He just went on Eric Jackman's Jackman Radio. I love the Jackman brothers, always have. When I met them with Reed Coverdale in the Ron Paul conference a couple of years ago, been a supporter of their channel for a while. And there's a history between me and Nelson that goes back many years with Jason Bermas regarding his film Loose Change. But as just to keep it recent, there is a challenge that he made a while back regarding John McDermott, I think his name was McDermott,
Yeah, the
regarding
Esquire writer, the guy.
regarding you know if you could show me a plane crash similar to Shankville, that Jason Bermas would actually stop showing these videos. And Nelson, this is one of my favorite stuff by you. Actually, you've done so much shit over the years I love. This one's a personal favorite of mine. It's one of my personal favorites of yours. And I'll just play the introduction to it. And this was a response video you made on your Patreon account regarding the challenge that Jason Bermas made. Now, we both did videos of this, but yours was much more thorough. And this was
open field, and you may have heads or badly burned. You got the body, bro. You got maybe a torso was ripped. It's not like they're looking for fragments and they're not on the scene. If you could point to one other commercial plane crash where anybody who is a primary investigator and shows up, and we've showed multiple, says there's no bodies and no evidence of a plane, I will not only shake your hand, I will stop showing people those clips.
Is that so?
It was going at a high rate of speed. Looked like a dart just diving to the ground.
There were no wings. There were no fuselage. There was no tail section. There were no aircraft seats.
Bits and pieces of passengers' luggage, and in some cases, bits and pieces of a human being.
If I could point to one other commercial plane crash, would Jason stop showing those clips and admit that Loose Change is wrong?
If you can point out, anything that I am wrong about, that I have fucking gotten wrong, I am the first guy to go, you know what? I got this shit wrong. I'm wrong. Period.
ah. Yeah, so that you made a whole video on this. And no, let me just do a follow-up for this. Has he ever reached out to you?
No, he's blocked me instead. But I will say that Reed Coverdale watched my whole thing on my whole video of this, and then approached him with all the same things. And Bermas just played dumb. What played him was just completely unaware of the plane example, because that's covering PSA 1771, which
Right.
was a plane crash over at San Luis Obispo back in '87, and it looks everything about that situation, that plane crash, is very similar to what happened to Flight 93 in Shanksville. And he just completely played ignorant. And Reed was entertaining the fact that, I believed the shoot down theory at one time, I believed all that. But then when I looked at the historical example and all that, and he had a very good argument, a very good case, and Bermas is just all over the place with other things, just kind of avoiding it.
Right, because you did the video that you made was regarding PSA 1771. I did a short video using Movie Maker regarding German Wings 9525.
Yeah.
But the PSA video was a better one because it actually was similar to Shanksville,
Yeah.
where you saw very little plane debris spread out over, whatever, how many miles it was and stuff like that.
Yeah. And now we have a more newer example to make the case, that Chinese airliner.
Oh,
that
yes. Right.
So.
I forgot about that. So what we wanted to do is just show that there is a history regarding us and Jason Bermas and whatnot. And look, I'll be the first to admit it. Look, I got a soft spot. I guess maybe it's my old age regarding this kid. There's a lot in common that I do have with him regarding off 9/11 material. But because people are going to say, why do you keep doing these videos regarding him? And it's like, for one. For me, and I'll speak for Nelson here, and I'll let him speak for himself too. But we take it personally. We're very active in this field, and there's hardly anyone left anymore. And when people get it wrong, it makes us all look bad because in the public's eye, they say all 9/11 skeptics and truthers are basically just crackpots who just repeat the same old false narratives. Well, I don't want to play on the defense here because I'm not one of those people. Nelson's not one of those people. And when people go on show, especially recent, and this is what we're talking about, 24 years after the fact now, you would think that people would be getting it right after all this time with the amount of information that's out there. But the videos we're going to be playing today is going to come in 3 parts. And we're going to show you where Jason Bermas gets it wrong on the recent interview he did with Mike Jackman. Mike Jackman, I get him wrong too. In fact, Jason Bermas mentions this in the video. He calls American. They both look alike so much and stuff.
Yeah.
But Nelson. So let's get on with it. So this is the first part. We're going to make it. The first part's going to be covering the 93 World Trade Center bombing. Yes.
And this was just yesterday, by the way. This was just barely yesterday.
That's correct. That's correct. Oh, yeah, that's correct. He did this interview yesterday. And this is covering Kurt Weldon's recent interview that he did with, I forgot who, and also the 93 World Trade Center bombing, Nelson, which is right up your damn alley. And let's just see what he has to say. I'm going to let this video collide, but if you want to stop it, this is how we do it. We stop the video with one of us say stop it, and we impart our thoughts regarding it, what we think was getting wrong. So here we go.
I'd say the same thing on Jimmy Dore, that essentially there had been a deal made outside of the leadership in Iran at the time, behind the back of Ahmadinejad, who was being demonized, part of the axis of evil. You remember that whole shebango. And essentially Soleimani, who was a name that wouldn't come up really till the Trump administration. And then if you did a little history on him, you realize that Soleimani and his troops were actually utilized to go after members of ISIS that were going into Iraq, etc. But they're saying essentially that a deal was cut with Soleimani that they would harbor bin Laden there in Iran. And then it's not quite clear why that deal goes south and then he gets transported back into Pakistan. I'd certainly want to explore that. But there were just so many incredible things about that Kurt Weldon interview that I was totally unaware of. And for me, somebody that not only had been studying Able Danger, but been reporting on it for years, I don't know if you knew it, but it was first time that I had heard that all 4 members that went public had called Weldon on the day as the attack was happening, right? Do you remember that? I don't remember that.
I never heard that before that interview. That was a total surprise to me. And I think Kurt Weldon probably knows a lot more than he's said so far. And I mean, that guy he was high ranking in Congress. I didn't realize how high ranking he was. And certainly it was nostalgic to hear him talk about the Orion produced charts again. And
first of all, just to add a little bit to that, Kurt Weldon actually served in the Armed Services Committee, actually. So he was quite respected in the field regarding that. And also, he was also the first congressman to bring about attention to a program called Able Danger, which was a very covert program regarding the Defense Intelligence Agency and the Land Information Warfare Activities Division regarding open and closed information regarding Al-Qaeda and their affiliates inside the United States. And what they came up with was that members of the Hamburg cell led by Mohammed Atta and Omar Abdel Rahman were operating inside the United States. And this information was actually ordered by the Department of Defense lawyers to be destroyed. And the only reason why was, according to the Department of Defense, that they had accrued information on U.S. citizens, meaning Muhammad Atta, Marwan al-Shehhi, and Siad Jarrah. Later on, in 2006, when the Senate committee ran its investigation into Able Danger, led by Arlen Specter, the magic bullet theory of JFK, he actually interviewed William Dugan, who was acting on behalf of the Department of Defense, and said, was Muhammad Atta a U.S. citizen? And he said no. Well, right there just tells me to believe, why the hell did the Department of Defense tell them to destroy the information regarding it? I don't know. That's the one thing I don't know. Were you familiar with that, Nelson, at all?
No, not that. No, not all of that. Not just. I mean, obviously, I know about Able Danger, obviously,
Right,
but
yeah.
yeah.
I've got the charts, Jason. I'll show you one of the charts next time. I'd love to see the charts. Let's
Well,
get them. Let's get them on the top of the charts.
Let me just say this. I had a little time with him afterwards, and I brought up the 93 bombing.
Here we go.
He brought that up really quickly in his prologue that he had visited the World Trade Center in 93 after the bombing.
Right.
And I brought up the fact about Ahmad Salam and how the FBI under John Anisev and their informant had built the bomb. And he knew.
Wow, accusing John Anisev of being a terrorist. Wow. If you actually,
I'll let you just go. You this is all you, Nelson.
It's like, yeah, if that tape recording was actually, if it actually was what it was, what he thinks it is, because, he's referring to two news reports, one's from CBS with Dan Rather, when they're talking about like the exchanging of the explosives instead of using powder. And then they obviously would be referring to the longer, audio tape recording between John Anisev and Salem. Of course, he's only clinging on to the buzzwords and not listening to the entire conversation, and not trying to figure out what the hell is really being said here, because it's very cryptic as far as what Salem is saying. I think the best way to really explain it all is by myself sharing a clip that I covered in my 1993 World Trade Center bombing film, which I also included Adam Fitzgerald as a part narrator for. I guess I could share it, right?
Yeah, you can. In fact, I'll stop here and let you share the clip itself.
Yeah, because I mean, this will only be the best way to do it. Make sure I got the share sound feature on.
Yeah.
Because well, I mean, there's a lot to say here, because I covered a lot of this, because the best way to explain it is that I do mention it in here, is that if Salem made the bomb, or even if with anything to do with the FBI, all the 93 World Trade Center conspirators who did see their days in court, even Ramzi Youssef 2 years later, who gets caught, but the three that were still in New York arrested, they all would have pointed the finger and said entrapment, to Salem.
Good point.
Yeah, they all had the same lawyers, but no, this thing is completely screwed up with the whole New York landmark plot, which they don't know jack about at all.
Correct. That's correct.
Because when that recording was made, it was made during the time when Salem is doing the New York landmark plot sting. That's still ongoing. This is not a conversation that's happening before the 93 or right after. It's happening, at least a few months afterwards. And, if you don't listen to what Salem is saying, he's complaining about money, not getting paid, and he's what he's basically doing is he's tempting to blackmail the New York FBI.
That's right.
Saying that pretending to say that I knew more than what about the bombing plot, and that we could have prevented it and all that. No, Salem through other interviews later on, based on newspaper reports and everything else, pretty much had no idea that they were going to target the Twin Towers. He was completely unaware of that. The only thing that he knew they were up to, and he wasn't even hanging out with the blind sheik, mind you, hadn't even been. This is before 1993. Wasn't even going to him. He was going to Gabroni, Ibrahim El Gabroni, which is El Sayed Noser's cousin. And they were visiting El Sayed in jail. And Noser wanted instead to use pipe bombs to target Jewish neighborhoods, Jewish businesses, and also pipe bombs to or shooting assassinations of political figures, ones that were keeping El Sayed Noser in jail. The other plot they wanted to do was to break El Sayed Noser out of jail. That's all that Salem told the FBI before they fired him or before he quit. It was kind of like fired quit, because he didn't. He tries to say they fired. They tried to say that they fired him, but Salem said, I quit because you guys weren't going to pay me and give me extra protection. And
also they wanted him to wear a wire too.
They wanted him to wear. That was part of it, because of the protect. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The wire to record, because that's why he was an FBI asset in the beginning, and then after the bombing happened, he became an FBI agent. In the New York landmark plot sting. But Jason has never went back to correct this, try to figure this out. He just goes on Alex Jones's word because it's popularized, because they got their sensationalized news clip, which will look. I'll just show it.
Yeah, you want to blow that up too? You go right ahead.
There we go.
There you go.
However, during the investigation and subsequent court cases for the conspirators behind the New York landmark plot and World Trade Center bombing, more information came to light about the FBI having previously hired their agent Imad Salem as an informer before the Trade Center bomb.
After the first month, the case took a surprise twist with the news that a key government informant, Imad Salem, had taped his talks with FBI agents. Salem had penetrated the circle of Muslim fundamentalists, which included Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman. Members of the group have been charged either in the Trade Center case or in a second plot to blow up other New York City landmarks.
Last winter, the FBI was praised for its speed in cracking the case of the World Trade Center bombing and bringing 4 suspects to trial. Now, there is some evidence that the FBI may have known of the plot in advance through an informant and might even have stopped the bombing that killed 6 people. Correspondent Jacqueline Adams has the story.
FBI agents might have been able to prevent last February's deadly explosion at New York's World Trade Center. They discussed secretly substituting harmless powder for the explosives, but they didn't, according to the FBI's own informant, Imad Salem. Unbeknownst to the FBI at the time, Salem recorded many of his conversations with his handlers.
I'm holding 903 pages of draft transcripts.
William Kunstler represents Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman and several others charged with conspiring to blow up a series of New York City landmarks 4 months after the World Trade Center bombing. That case has not yet gone to trial. Kunstler confirmed newspaper reports of the Salem transcripts. In one, Salem complains to an FBI agent, "Since the bomb went off, I feel terrible. I feel bad. I feel here is people who don't listen." The agent replies, "Hey, I mean, it wasn't like you didn't try and I didn't try. You can't force people to do the right thing."
There is material in here to show gross governmental misconduct.
Today, attorneys for the defendants in the ongoing World Trade Center bombing case formally asked for the transcripts of Salem's tapes.
Quite frankly, beyond me, why now, the 4th week into the trial, we still don't have these materials.
Prosecutors have refused to comment publicly, but legal experts say the defense may have no right to those transcripts.
It's not a defense to a crime to say, if only the government had stopped me, I wouldn't have done it. So this isn't material that ordinarily the defense would be entitled to.
As already aforementioned, the explosive for the World Trade Center bomb was urea nitrate. A substance such as powder would be an indication for a much smaller device, like a pipe bomb. And looking at when Salem stopped infiltrating the cell the first time, Salem himself had never stated that El Sayed Noser or his cousin Ibrahim Al Gabroni strategized the Twin Towers as a desired target, only that they were talking about assassinations and multiple pipe bombings. This is primarily why El Gabroni was only convicted of the multiple bombings attempt with the New York landmark plot through Salem's testimony and not for the World Trade Center. But again, After the Trade Center bombing, Salem secretly recorded hours of his conversations on tape with law enforcement officers, including John Antisev, during the landmark plot sting.
A newspaper article revealed the existence of the tapes, and the Reuters news agency received written transcripts. A copy of one of the most revealing conversations between Ahmad Salem and an FBI agent named John was acquired by WBAI. In that conversation, Salem demands more money from the FBI, outlining his contributions to the agency, including a cryptic statement by Salem to the FBI. Salem says, "We know the bombs start to be built by your confidential informant."
Now, even the last 3 weeks is going to be a nice payment. I'm just telling you for the future and what the expenses, they just don't want to buy in on $500 of expenses. That's all. We're just going to have to give me the, some of the expenses, and they'll pay what operationally they are allowed to pay.
Let me think about it.
Don't think it. There's nothing to think about.
Of course I have to think about it. I mean, I have...
And then later on, there's bonuses and things of that nature. The only thing I'm telling you different than from before is that it's not a salary.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm telling you that is different than what we were doing anyway.
Yeah.
Okay? And
okay, let him to go recruit Ahmad Abdu, or let him to go talk to Ahmad Abdul Sattar. Ahmad Sattar, he's a good subject. He can really give you a big help.
Yeah.
Let him really to give you a big help.
Look, he doesn't understand everything.
Well, he have to understand. He is the boss. We all running our heads around this boss. So he got to understand this point.
But basically nothing has changed. I'm just telling you for my own sake that this isn't a salary, that it's, but you got paid regularly for good information. I mean, the expenses were a little bit out of the ordinary, and it was really questioned. Don't tell Nancy I told you this.
Well, I have to tell her, of course.
Well, then if you have to, you have to.
Yeah, because, I mean, the lady was being honest, and I was being honest, and everything was submitted with a receipt.
Yeah.
And now it's questionable.
It's not questionable. It's like a little out of ordinary.
Okay.
All
right. I don't think it was. If that's what you think, guys, fine. But I don't think that, because we was start already building the bomb, which is went off in the World Trade Center. It was built by supervision from the Bureau and the DA, and we was all informed about it, and we know that the bombs start to be built. By who? By your confidential informant. What a wonderful, great case.
Well.
And then he put his head in the sand and said, oh, no, that's not true. He is a son of a bitch.
He's talking about the head of the FBI calling a son of a bitch because he was the one that got him basically to quit. I forget what's the FBI head's name again.
John Dunbar.
John Dunbar.
Yeah,
that's
Carlos Dunbar.
Dunbar. Yeah, that's who he's mad about because he got booted out originally from before. This is all about being pissed off about that, and then and then Antisev saying, saying you guys you're wanting more money, more extravagant stuff that we're already offering you, and but Salem originally he wanted a lot more money in the beginning. He wanted $2 million at first, and then he ended up getting it after the bombing happened to watch these people.
Right. So afterwards, all right. Let me add to this too for Jason Bermas, if he's ever watching this, is that they were building a bomb that wasn't even big enough to begin with, and they were changing the blasting caps and stuff like this. And Carlos Dunbar had a meeting with with associates regarding this specific case, and so they didn't like that Ahmad Salem had such a close relationship with Nancy Floyd. There was a lot of excuses, and so they actually fired Ahmad Salem. And then what happens? All right, so now Omar Abdel Rahman calls Pakistan. Pakistan sends Ramzi Youssef. Ramzi Youssef actually buys ingredients regarding a much bigger bomb. And this was the bomb that Nelson brought up in the film, and it's the urea nitrate bomb, in which he had associates like Yassin and Abelima and Salome were all helping with their assistance regarding the building.
Adel Ayad was the one who helped with the chemicals.
Right, Adel Ayad. And they built the bigger bomb, which was used in the truck, in the Ryder truck. And this is not the same bomb that Bermas thinks that the FBI was building. Ahmad Salem is long gone now. So he's not even in the operation.
No.
Until after the 93 bombing, where they actually go back to Imad Salem and he agrees to do it for $1 million and they tell him yes.
And I'll tell you one other thing before I play, because I showed it at the very beginning of my film here, where Alex Jones says, you know, the informant, you know, taught Mohammed Salame how to drive the van and where to place it and all that, that stuff, right? He says that, and he's alluding to Imad Salem being the informant. No, he isn't the informant. They're talking about the informer. The informer was Abdul Rahman Yassin, the Iraqi, the one that had seizures and stuff like that. He taught Salame how to drive the van because Salame was a crappy driver. He'd even got into a car accident, you know, with Ramzi Youssef a month and a half before, and he was really very nervous. And he even helped. He helped to drive when he went to go rent the vehicle. He helped him drive him, try to even teach him how to park it in the neighborhood. I mean, that's how bad. That was the informer because Yassin, after they got busted, Yassin was the one helping out the FBI, telling them where they made the bombs, where they made all that stuff. So he became the informer. So Alex Jones mixes him by newspaper article as being Salem, the informant. Yes. That's what he does. And Yassin, as we all know, if you watched my film, he ends up fleeing back to Iraq 2 days later because the FBI let him go because he was so helpful. And they were going out and arresting everybody else. That's exactly what it is. And people need to get that straight. But anyways.
With a different way in another place, and that's it.
No. Don't make any risk. You know, I'm just trying to be as honest with you as I can.
Of course, I appreciate that.
And as far as the the payments go and everything like that, they're there. I guarantee you that they are there.
Notice the media emphasizes that they might have been able to stop it. They then gloss over the fact that the bomb was built by their agent under FBI supervision in conjunction with the district attorney.
Instead of what some impatient, soundbite-driven, independent, and alternative media researchers have done using a very short segment of the Salem tape, we've demonstrated a lengthier portion of the 14-minute recording in part as a revelation of Salem's attitude in regards for his fees and services and what other additional bonuses he may have been attempting to extract from the feds. Besides that it was Reuters who misquoted or misunderstood the specific Salem recording, taking it out of context. Jason Bermas, likely having taken his marching orders from Alex Jones, ignored all of this and asserts that the bomb was built by Salem, but that the media simply ignored it, and that allegedly with the Salem tape, the bomb making had been supervised by the FBI and district attorney, basically making a false accusation that Salem did participate in or carried out a terrorist attack. But Bermas himself, again, glosses over the detail of the feds substituting a harmless powder for Salem. Bermas making no distinction detailing when Salem's wired recordings were made and released, which was after the World Trade Center bomb, during the landmarks plot sting, and after that. But point being is that what accusations have been made in asserting an FBI role in the Trade Center bombing is primarily about taking Imad Salem out of context in case, as what Salem said to John Antisev could easily be interpreted as extortion in what Salem really meant in his poor and cryptic English, since such recordings were never made to go public. Basically, as reported, that Salem was threatening to contact FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. about the New York Bureau's failure to stop the bombing could be seen as a form of blackmail for not having paid on Met with Salem's high demands originally to keep himself in the circles of Nosair, El Gabroni, and the Blind Sheikh, wired as an FBI agent, where Salem would have to take the stand in a trial. And more recordings surfaced again back in 2011 with the same narrative by the most unlikely of mainstream media, in that the FBI could have prevented the bombing, but again, cryptically, with no indication of Salem himself physically constructing or preparing a big bomb.
A man who risked everything to go undercover in a terror organization releasing new recordings showing how the United States may have been able to stop the World Trade Center bombing back in '93. However, Imad Salem says that the feds forced him to stop his work when he refused to risk wearing a wire. Just a few months later, the terror cell brought in Ramzi Youssef. He put together the plan to set off a bomb at the World Trade Center, a bomb that killed 6 people. and hurt 1,000 more. After, Salem made his recording of a conversation with one of the handlers. Bear with us here. The audio's not great, so listen up.
If we was continuing with what we was doing, this bomb would never go off.
Absolutely, but don't repeat that.
It's really simple. If Salem was actually in a firm position to have prevented the World Trade Center bombing as an informant, then Mahmoud Abalima, Nadel Ayad, Mohammed Salameh, and the other conspirators, still fugitive or unaccounted for at this time, would have acknowledged Salem in the Trade Center conspiracy and have gone the same lengths to prove their innocence with accusations of entrapment, just like Sadiq Ali did with the Landmark plot.
When transcripts of the tapes were leaked to the press, they showed that Salem had warned the FBI about the general outlines of the bomb plot well before the Trade Center blast. The transcript quotes an FBI agent telling Salem his agency had failed to act in time, saying, "The fact of the matter is that nothing was done about it. If it had been handled correctly, we should have been able to intervene." The jury has not yet heard those tapes. They raise the possibility that defense lawyers may use them to charge government entrapment or move for a mistrial.
But they didn't.
It would have been fairly easy for the Trade Center bombing conspirators to claim government entrapment, since within both court cases of the World Trade Center and Landmark plot bombers had a revolving door of the same defense lawyers. Besides, what would be the point to Sadiq informing Salem that he took part in a test version of the World Trade Center bomb if Salem is supposed to already be in the Trade Center conspiracy?
He did.
When unraveling this mess to try to make any sense of this popular claim or urban legend of FBI involvement or them orchestrating the World Trade Center bombing apparently wouldn't be the sort of thing that the defense would like the public to puzzle and try to bring clarity. Nor is it a sensational enough narrative for the short attention span of fringe conspiracy theorists, particularly if they are lazy and lack integrity in the first place.
The Independent reported that several of the bombers were trained by the CIA to fight in the Afghan war, and that the CIA admitted partial responsibility for the bombings. Ron Kuby, defense attorney, said concerning the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, quote, "The mastermind of the 1993 WTC bombing is the government of the United States. It was a phony government-engineered conspiracy to begin with, and it would never have amounted to anything had the government not planned it."
Of course. If one were solely looking at the defense's point of view.
There you have it, right?
Yeah,
So
that's it. Yeah, and that's
all you need.
Attorney trying to make up anything to just mislead the public from implicating, the people he's defending. That's all. Yeah, that's why Ron Kuby would entertain a government conspiracy. Yeah.
We wanted to play that video in its entirety because it actually shows, how the narrative of the government or the FBI building a bomb was orchestrated by the informant itself. But when, people like Jason Bermas play these clips and they play it without any context whatsoever or history behind it, well, you can make it sound just like, oh, the FBI helped build the bomb. But as you can see from playing entire clips of the news articles and, video edits and whatnot, that shows that Imad Salem, doesn't really just say that. It was just taken out of context. And not only that, he wasn't even involved in the operation because at that time, he's out of the operation because of Carlos Dunbar's decision not to keep him on as an informant until after the bombing itself, and where they get Omar Abdul Rahman and Sadiq Ali and the rest regarding the Landmarks plot.
Yeah, and Salem said it was in July of 1992 when he left. That's a clear another 6-7 months until the bombing happened.
Prior to the bomb, right? Exactly. So I'm hoping Bermas watches this. Just to show him that hey, he's wrong, and that's the reason why we played that intro in the beginning where he says, if I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to say it. Well, we've been telling him he's wrong for a long time. He's not been able to reach out to us, conveniently, or he's been rude to us actually in regards to blocking us and then calling us
trolls and all that whatever.
And the second clip I'm going to play actually is not involved with 9/3 or 9/11 itself, but I did find there was a lot of irony to it, and I'll explain why. And listen to what he has to say here.
Just listen to the interview she's given the last couple of weeks, where she she just got rolled. I mean, we think there's a big truck of files coming, and we're going to release these binders to these influencers and have them pose for photos. I mean, come on, dude.
All right, Mike, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I get confused. They look a lot alike, folks.
It's all good.
Mike, let me tell you something. Again, baseline knowledge on this whole thing. Hey, anybody that was like a fifth grader doing a report on this.
Yeah.
You remember when you had Brad Edwards representing with other lawyers a bunch of the victims in a civil case against Epstein. Now, this case went all the way up to jury selection before Epstein finally folded for an undisclosed amount of money and a bunch of non-disclosure agreements. They held a press conference. In fact, the viral video of Derek Bros talking to Bradley Edwards about Donald Trump, because Bradley Edwards talking about Donald Trump and how he was one of the only, if not the only person that was cooperative with him about Epstein. Go look up that press conference. Anybody can. They had it in front of boxes as tall as my shoulder surrounding them, documents on the case. They pointed to the documents and referred to them. A binder would not have held a nut's hair of those documents, folks. And then let's even take it a little bit further, okay? Bare minimum, in New York, there's a stack of binders this wide with evidence in them, with the binders blacked out on the side.
So the reason why I played this video is because he actually is showing a lot of emotion regarding, here, why are they handing people like DJ Drano and libs of TikTok very, probably the biggest sex trafficking case in the history of the United States or the world itself. Why are they handing it to right-wing commentators who are actually known for spreading disinformation? When this video was playing this, I said, that's ironic because that's how we feel about you regarding 9/11 because you're doing the same thing, is that you're promoting the same crackpots theories regarding 9/11 and 93, which we just played, and yet you showed the same amount of disparagement regarding other people regarding the Epstein case. Now, I'm not somebody who's involved with the Epstein case as other people. He just named a couple: Whitney Webb, Derek Rose. I'm not an expert or even a layman in that field, but I find it ironic, Nelson, that he would basically get a little bit pissed off regarding the handling of information regarding Epstein, but can't see it regarding certain conspiracies, fringe conspiracies regarding 93 and the World Trade and 9/11.
Yeah. I'm the same way with with Epstein. I don't know much. It's just not my subject. It's just not not that interested in it as much. It's just like I tend to like what I've said before is people want to make up a Jewish conspiracy trying to tie it into 9/11, and there's really nothing there to tie. So and like I just goes in one ear out the other to me, is as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I just think it's hypocritical. If you're, look, I'm not right about 9/11, 93, and I find out new information just almost every other day.
Yeah,
and there are things that Hey, listen, I come from a conspiracy background. I remember watching Loose Change and In Plain Sight by Dave Von Cleese, and really thought there was no plane crash at the Pentagon Shanksville. We all did at one point.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of correcting these issues over a long, period of time by looking at information impartially.
Yeah, and not admitting that, and not trying to pretend like you didn't go through these mistakes. That's the big thing. You got to be honest about, but you correct yourself. You explain why you fell into this spell, or whatever,
Right. Well, it goes right to your point about building a repertoire, building a reputation. right? If you're just going to go throughout say, yeah, I was never part of this conspiracy fold. Meanwhile, there's evidence to show that you were at one point. Well, it's okay to be embarrassed, but don't be embarrassed by the correction itself. That's a strength. It shows that, hey, when I'm wrong, I'll admit when I'm wrong. But, when it comes to Jason Bermas itself, I mean, after the McDermott challenge, like you said, he blocked you and he ignored me and called me a troll, actually. So, I'm not going to use this video and basically say Jason Bermas is a blah, 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 idiot, fuck, all this stuff. It's like that. We're just going to show you how you're wrong.
Yeah.
And why? By using information that is readily available and is out there. Now, if you're one to basically say, hey, listen, I was wrong in the past, I'm not going to hang it over your head either. I'm not, doing that either. But when it comes to false information or misinformation, I'm going to basically do more videos in the future with Nelson regarding why you're wrong. And we're going to tell you why you're wrong.
Yeah.
And it doesn't bring us any pleasure to do these videos. I wish we didn't have to begin with. And at one point, I remember doing videos with Nelson almost every month regarding Christopher Bolin and Rebecca Roth and Jim Fetzer and everybody else. But here's all right, this is the final edit, and this one's a little bit longer. So if you want to stop it and impart your thoughts, you can. It's about 16 minutes. So this is all 9/11. This is all Jason Bermas 9/11. Let's see what he has to say here.
I think I'm going to cut those 3 interviews that we've been discussing up in their little 9/11 sections and maybe even do a promoted tweet on that one so that can get out there. He talked about the documents from the CIA being out there and how there was even units to make sure people didn't get to those documents. So after the fact, after we turned it all off, I asked him, I go, Rudy, are you going to tell me you don't think they demoed Building 7?
Now he's talking about Rudy Giuliani here.
I remember this.
And he goes, and he didn't say it was off the record, and he said he would come back on my show, etc. He goes, I don't, because of all the documents that were scattered about. He goes, but if they were trying to destroy documents, then yes, I could see them doing it. And he goes, at this point, after what was done to me, I'm open to all the conspiracy theories.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Going back from 2007.
Go ahead, Nelson. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, anybody could be convinced that Building 7 was a controlled demolition. It's like what I did recently speak for the Boston 9/11 Truth Group. I made David Schlesinger admit that he met God damn it, the guy from Kroll.
Jerome Howard.
Jerome Howard. Because Jerome Howard ended up telling him that he thought it was a controlled demolition, and he's the most number one suspect of being involved in covering up the whole story than Giuliani is. Okay, and it's I don't want to get into debunking Building 7. I could, but yeah, for Giuliani to even say that, you obviously you can't throw him in as a suspect anymore. And secondly, the fact that he's saying that, I'm willing to believe anything now. Well, yeah, it might be because he's been a victim and targeted, from whatever has been going after him, all that's been going after him legally. But at the same time, he's willing to throw that stuff out there just to muddy the water, just to obfuscate and confuse, because it would be even dumb in the first place to just rig the building up just to destroy documents. Is that why you believe that the Twin Towers is rigged? For explosive to just destroy documents, or was it to kill people? Come on. Anyways, that's where I want to address.
Yeah, let me add to that too. That was a great point, by the way, with the World Trade Center. Why take down those 2 towers 1 and 2? That's a lot of demolition for just documents.
Yeah.
I interviewed, and I was very fortunate to do this. Me and Richard Cox had got an interview with the former chief of station, Bin Laden station, Michael Scheuer, and near the end, he actually told Richard that he thinks World Trade Center 7 was controlled demolition.
Exactly.
Itself.
Another perfect example. Another great example. And this guy was on History Channel documentaries laughing at the 9/11 Truth Movement for their demolition claims.
That's right. That's right.
And now,
Yeah.
because because he's been sort of a target too, since he's been very vocal against Israel,
That's right.
Yeah.
Phones, the firefighters and their radios.
Yeah.
And that contract, I think what were they, Motorola radios, or they were
I think they were Motorola's.
Motorola, yeah. And
they were something beyond a pager, right? It wasn't I think they were a combo pack of a pager, but it was also multi-channel like a walkie-talkie.
Yeah, there's footage of me and Martel asking him about that and about the commission and about the health effects, and I think Christy Todd Whitman somewhere. There's footage of it somewhere and this is going back to 2007 when he was running for president. And it was actually some firefighters and victims' family members. I think Sally Reaganhart might have been part of it, and Jimmy Richards were up here in New Hampshire campaigning against Giuliani and about his record as America's mayor in respect to his actions on 9/11. So
yeah, let me just fill in real quick about why this was an issue with Giuliani, who was the mayor at the time. For years, the fire department of New York actually were calling for upgraded radio equipment in New York City firehouses, and they were desperate regarding high-rise fires, because the more you got to the top, the less there was more interference regarding radio calls between the ground and the air. So, of course, with the World Trade Center, you had 110 stories, and one building I think was 108, the other one, and they were trying to get in contact with firemen that were already reaching up there. One of them was Oriel Palmer, the other one was Ronnie Bucca, who we're quite familiar with.
Yeah.
They were the first ones to reach the 81st floor, but the problem was that nobody heard their calls because there was a big issue with the radios. Now, after 9/11 Commission, actually, Rudy Giuliani gave an opening statement, and this is the only time in the Commission's inquiry where you had members of the family members of the firemen who actually were thrown out because they were actually yelling at Giuliani regarding these radio calls. So that's the reason why I want to just stop the video and explain to us why there was a big issue with Giuliani to begin.
Flash forward almost 20 years later, he's on your pod. We're down there at Ground Zero 106 Bermas and demanding an investigation in 9/11, and he's on your podcast.
And now they're saying, let's do it.
What timeline are we in?
Another thing that Schaefer mentioned to me, and I think that this was off air after the fact. So if you're watching the interview and you're looking for this may not be in there, but everything else I've said, he said on air. I did ask him early on whether or not, because he did talk about this on air. After Kurt Weldon went on Jimmy Dore, Schaefer put out a post saying that there would be more revelations about 9/11 and other areas of interest via the Trump administration. So I asked him about that, and he said that is correct. And off air, he said that he talked to Trump personally, and he believes they are going to declassify some of the 9/11 stuff and that Trump wants it.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy.
I believe that. I believe that.
Yeah, I believe, not even that. But Bermas never brings this up. And let me just say this. I'm a firm critique of the Biden administration, one of the worst administrations of my lifetime.
I think so too.
Okay. But the one thing I got to give Biden here was the release of Executive Order 104400. And this was the Operation Encore Files. At least he did this. Whereas previously in 2016, the same was expected of Trump in 2016 from the victims' families out of the Southern District of New York, who was suing for the civil suit case regarding the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's involvement with 9/11. Well, Attorney General then was William Barr. William Barr basically said, not only am I not declassifying these files, but I'm going to mark them for matters of national security so you can use them in your civil suit against Saudi Arabia. Now, I never hear Bermas bring this up regarding Trump. I think he's I think Bermas is liberal. I don't know if he's liberal, but he's right in the middle between liberal and conservative.
Well,
but he never mentions anything about Biden, though, Nelson.
Well, that was one of Trump's biggest mistakes, is bringing in William Barr, because what most people don't know, because we're not taught this in 9/11 Truth, not to look at these chain of terrorism events, is that William Barr has been covering up major acts of terrorism since the bombing of bombing of Pan Am 103 over Lockerbie. He was at front center covering that up, you know, and he even pushed now to get this guy Masood, the Libyan that they're trying to say built the bomb. Now, you know, long after now Libya's destroyed and everything else, they went and extradited this guy, and Barr was the one that even held a press conference of when they arrested him too, and when they brought him over and stuff. You know, the whole process of all that. So, you know, he was what was he? Was he Secretary General then?
I'm not sure.
During H.W. Bush, I believe he was. So yeah, he was the one already covering that up, and ironically enough, so was the former head of the FBI was involved in covering the Pan Am 103.
Louis Freeh.
No, not Louis Freeh.
Not Louis Freeh?
No, the head of the FBI during Mueller.
Oh, Robert Mueller.
Robert Mueller. Yeah, Robert Mueller
Yeah.
was also involved in covering up Pan Am 103. You know, pointing to the circuit board chip that they said was used in the bomb and all that. It's a picture of him doing that. You know. So
shit, that's right. That's right. I forgot about that. I forgot about that.
Anyways, so I mean,
I want to go back to your point. William Barr, actually under the Bush administration, was the
Attorney General.
I'm trying to. Yeah, well, hold on. Was he the United States Assistant Attorney General, Office of Legal Counsel, and then became the United States Deputy Attorney General under the H.W. Bush administration. So you're right.
Exactly. Okay, got it.
Well, let's see. It's to be seen, Bermas, as we know about this type of thing.
I ask this question to Anthony Schaefer.
Let me just read this first from Varen Saw. Thank you for submitting. And they ask, I'm curious about Dark Overlord documents, which Mr. Bermas has covered on his show in years past, and whether the alleged hijackers are running a drill unbeknownst to passengers and crew on 9/11. Interesting question.
So glad you asked that. First off, the Dark Overlord documents, we only got 3 dumps out of 5. And the last 2 probably had the most sensitive information out there. Some of the information that was in those documents were the transcripts of lawsuits that were of private citizens suing, including some of the 9/11 widows. That's where I got some of the most pertinent information that had not been public about the hijackers, for instance. And a casing of a plane that James Woods, the pilot, and the stewardess thought was going to be a hijacking, which also turned out to probably be Flight 11. And I believe it's Khalid al-Mihdhar and Muhammad Atta who were the ones that were named as definite passengers that were supposed to be part of separate cells, by the way.
Because Woods was so concerned, he held on to his knife or his fork from his meal, right? He was literally that concerned.
Yes.
Wow.
And they all...
Okay, Bermas made a mistake here. They weren't part of separate cells. Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawab al-Hadmi were actually supposed to be pilots, and it was allegedly selected by bin Laden. But because they didn't go to English classes, which they were supposed to do while in San Diego, they couldn't get their pilot's licenses. So in other words, they had to replace al-Mihdhar and al-Hadmi, and who they replaced with? Hani Hanjour, the alleged pilot hijacker of what? Flight 77, that you don't believe crashed into the Pentagon. So here's the issue regarding that: is that Atta headed the Hamburg cell, al-Mihdhar and al-Hadmi headed the 77 cell, which was Hani Hanjour and others that were involved with the hijacking of Flight 77. But they were part of the same cell. There's a part of different hijacking groups, actually. That's all. But they were part of the same group. Nelson, you actually covered this issue regarding Atta. Was that Atlanta, the airport?
Well, they were saying that they were doing a dry run, and it may have been Flight 11 months before it happened.
Yeah, months prior.
It did fly that route back and forth to LA and DC all the time. But he was saying there was Atta and al-Mihdhar on that flight that James Wood saw. So that would be 2 separate teams, because that would be Atta who eventually does. Not Flight 11, Flight 77.
Correct, right.
Flight 77 flew always back and forth to New York. To LA and to DC. So that they saw, Atta Almandar on the same flight. But as far as was Atta seen on other flights and stuff previously? Yeah. In fact, he was seen months before, dressed as an airlines pilot, riding in the jump seat from a plane from Maryland to Florida.
Yeah.
And the pilot that flew that plane remembers it illicitly. I mean, so you remember all the weird questions and all that other stuff. So that's just one of my other theories about how he got on board Flight 11.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, from Boston Logan.
Got to the FBI. In those documents, it names the FBI agents that were aware of it. It also quotes Seymour Hersh that said it went all the way up. All these different things. So originally, and I bring this up with Schaefer early on, because 15 years ago in New York City at one of the churches, we had spoken together at a 9/11 event. And we were in the back room, and I asked him that very question. I asked him almost the Dark Overlord documents obviously weren't out, but I go, what are the chances that some of these guys thought they were running a drill on the morning of 9/11? And at that point, he looked at me funny. He couldn't even believe it. And he goes, he had a total about face now. And he said, we actually talked about Amalgam Virgo and Bin Laden and those drills. We talked about the drills that were going on that morning. And I think that coupled with the information now, and I don't know that this information has been said anywhere else but my show. This is Kurt Weldon, and this is, again, backed up by Schaefer, but Schaefer, I don't know that knew it, because Kurt Weldon said he has two people, I think it was within the State Department or the Pentagon, that now have confirmed to him that two of the hijackers, they weren't just being groomed or living with the FBI and the CIA, were on the direct CIA payroll.
Oh, that's right. He did mention that. That's crazy, man. That is, I mean, you already got out in California
This is, first of all, wow, what a major league claim. Secondly, I've never heard this before. And when the Canestraro document came out, a lot of people, including Gray Zone, who I liked, they actually got the headline wrong. The headline was that Saudi and the CIA allowed for two CIA informants to live inside the United States. First of all, Khalid al-Mihdhar and al-Hazmi were never informants. They were trying to get them as informants of the CIA, but they failed in the regards because the Saudi operative that was in charge of trying to recruit them, Omar al-Bayoumi, was suspected of being a spy by none other than Nawaf al-Hazmi. So, even if Nawaf al-Hazmi, Khalid al-Mihdhar were supposed to be recruited into this operation by the CIA, they were going to fail anyway because they didn't trust Omar al-Bayoumi. And also, let me continue with Jason Bermas here, because he's about to make a similar mistake that he's repeated in the past.
Well, I wanted to say,
go ahead.
I wanted to say, what he says about Schaefer giving an about face, like looking at him weird for him asserting that the hijacking drills were, I forget the context exactly what he just said, but that's of course I don't blame Schaefer for basically looking at him like you're nuts, but that it had to do with the attacks themselves, and that's why he would respond of we went over all the drills, we went over all the Bin Laden threats and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, that just shows you how retarded you were, and you still are, about your hoax, your hoax and your plane swap theories and stuff,
Yeah, and let me add to that too, Nelson. About a couple of months ago, Schaefer was interviewed by Richard Gage, and afterwards I spoke to Schaefer about this because I've interviewed Schaefer twice.
Yeah. Yes.
And I asked him about Richard Gage. I said, "Were you familiar with him?" And this and that. He goes, "Yeah, I am. And I know that he proposes, some very questionable theories, but he says, oh, don't worry, I really don't treat him seriously." So I'm like, he just went on just to be nice, right?
Yeah.
He just did it just to be a nice guy. But yes, going back to your point, Nelson, regarding how he views people like Jason Bermas and how he views Richard Gage with skepticism. And there's a major league difference regarding, say, him going on, like a Judge Napolitano or my own show.
Yeah.
And regarding him being interviewed by the likes of Bermas and Gage. Yeah, on face he'll nice to you, but he won't take you seriously.
Yeah.
And if you have to ask why, well, then that's the problem to begin with, because you don't see the problems that you're presenting.
Yeah. He's just taking up the space to get the message out, which I don't blame him.
Yeah, I can't blame him either. Agreed.
Going to meet the asset who gave them an apartment and
Al Bayumi, all those things. But those are things we've
that's
covered.
Proven. That's been proven for a long time.
A very long time. You also had to look at most of these guys. A lot of them were trained at U.S. bases. You had the Defense Language School in Monterey, California. That's
right.
You had ATA and Maxwell Air Force Base.
Thank you. Just what I was going to lead into here. I'm so glad he brought this up, Nelson. So I'm going to stop share here, right? I'll go back to it in a minute. Muhammad Atta. Now, for those who are not very well versed in Arab names, some Arab names are very common, especially ones with last names like Al-Ghamdi, Al-Nami, Al-Haznawi. Arab names have a very familiarity within their own tribes and within the Gulf itself, more specifically Saudi Arabia, where they take on the names of past generations of different tribes. Well, in this case, Muhammad Atta is a very common name. And even though he's Egyptian, here, this is what he's talking about, Jason Bermas, regarding a military base in Andrews. Okay, look what it says right here. Muhammad Raghib Atta. Now, Muhammad Atta doesn't have a middle name.
No, he never been used Raghib at all. You don't ever see it anywhere.
Correct. Look at the age here.
52. Not born in 1955.
Yeah, born in 1955. Look at the address. Lackland Air Force Base, Texas. Right? This is the information Jason Bermas is trying to tell you, that this is proof that Muhammad Atta lived on an Air Force base, was trained by the CIA. This is where this misinformation comes from.
Yeah.
Is that when you have people like this that propose these theories to try and get a conspiracy involving, say, members of the national security state or the military industrial complex or even the State Department, yet they still get it wrong regarding the information and they don't correct the issue. And look, right here in front of you, this is not the same Muhammad Atta that allegedly took over Flight 11, right?
No.
Obviously, it's not. So we'll continue to let Jason Bermas dig his own grave, because he doesn't stop there. Here's what he has to say otherwise. Afterwards.
You had the schools down in Florida where some of them had their own addresses listed as those bases. And one of the things I highlight really quickly in Fabled Enemies is that you had Deborah Albritton, just an everyday American citizen, call not the cops, not even the FBI, not the troopers, the CIA on Walid al-Shari before the attacks, and nothing was done.
Yeah, this was going back to a point. This was actually going to a point because the neighbors were actually loud. And she had previously called the police and they didn't come out. And then later on, she does say that there were police officers outside the house or 2 blocks down or something like that, and that they were looking at the house itself. Now, this is not to say that they were being monitored inside the United States. I'm pretty sure they fucking were, because years later, through the Canestraro documents and Operation Encore, the CIA and NSA knew that these guys were inside the United States. Even Israeli intelligence, who in August of 2001 gave the CIA the list of not just 1, 2, 3, but all fucking 19 of the hijackers. How the fuck would they know that, right? So you had Saudi intelligence, Israeli intelligence, the CIA, the NSA, all knowing that these people were inside the United States. So it's not a big conspiracy. Conspiracy is that these people knew about it, and what did they collect from these people? That's the real conspiracy, but that's something you don't ever talk about as well. Let me bring up also, too, let me stop right here about, these.
Well, just by the way, the Mossad said they gave 20 names, but only 4 of them turned out to be 9/11 hijackers.
Correct, right. Those were, I think, it was Khalid al-Mihdhar, Nawab Azmi, Muhammad Atta, Marwan al-Shayh, and
Yeah.
also by the way.
Yeah.
But again, one of the hijackers is Saeed al-Ghamdi. Now, here you have a number of Saeed al-Ghamdis. This is from Intelligence report, right? Saeed al-Ghamdi, age 43, right? Pensacola, Florida. Saeed al-Ghamdi, Fairfax, Virginia. Saeed Ahmed al-Ghamdi, Pensacola, Florida. Saeed A.A. al-Ghamdi, San Antonio, Texas. Saeed al-Ghamdi in Verbi, as you can see, look how many fucking Saeed al-Ghamdis there are inside the United States itself. That's a lot here. So by just saying, these guys lived in, Pensacola, Florida, and they get the address, they're not even the same person.
Yeah.
Not even the same person. That's all I wanted to bring up. But
Well,
you knew about this a long time yourself.
Yeah, well, one of them did go to the Defense Institute in Monterey, apparently, the Language Institute. One of them did.
Right.
Yeah, but big fucking deal. You have a story like Ali Mohammed from around the 1993. Well, he wasn't involved in it, but he was associated with El Said Nosair and all that. The guy became a Green Beret. I mean, he became like a bit major trainer and stuff like that. And then, you got still after the fact, after 9/11, you've got, Hassan, the guy that did the shooting in Texas at the base.
Hassan. Hassan, yeah. Whoopie-doo.
Whoopie-doo.
But yeah, you'll never hear them. I mean, Ali Muhammad's a great example of this.
Yeah.
Right? Because here's a guy who basically took pictures of the embassies in Nairobi and Kenya, and was involved in the 98 East Africa bombings. He's also involved with members of the plot in 93. But you'll never hear that from him. Here's a guy who actually was in the military, lived high up.
Yeah. So that tells you, like, you're still thinking the lower level guys, just muscle hijackers. We're telling you, like, they'll climb that ladder further than that, dude, than just being some great. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wouldn't it be something if one of those guys on the direct payroll was al-Shayri?
Well, so two things.
Why would he be? First of all, he's a muscle hijacker, right? Now, if you brought up a name like Muhammad Atta, Marwan al-Shayh, Hani Hanjour, or Ziad Jarrah, the pilot hijackers, then you got a story, because these are the guys that are allegedly in the know regarding the operational plans. As Mike even suggested earlier, that a lot of these muscle hijackers didn't even know they were on a martyrdom mission. That's true.
Yeah,
not
that's
everybody
what they
was
might.
in the know.
Yeah, Mike will even say that. That I agree with. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like bringing up one of the muscle hijackers like Walid al-Shehri, who, by the way, their own father even states that they were involved with the 9/11 plot. They were just, illiterates and, were taken advantage of. And I played that clip. I think I shared it with Nelson regarding that film that was made by Saudi Arabia, a very rare film, by the way.
Very rare.
Regarding the members of the hijack plot. But yeah, I mean, Jason, come on, man. You're not. I'm going to give you save face here. You're not Christopher Bolin. You're not, Richard Gage. You're not in that fairyland period, because you've got some knowledge here regarding 9/11. You're not a full-on kook, as I would say. I think Nelson would disagree with me slightly there, but nevertheless, I still have hope for you regarding. I think you actually, if you just corrected these issues, you would actually be a force to be reckoned with. But if you're going to continue down this road that these guys were trained by the CIA, they lived on military bases, and the planes that crashed the World Trade Center with drones, you're not going to be taken seriously.
Yeah, you're just going to give us more material to critique and keep exposing you and showing you wrong.
Earlier
That's
about
all you're going to have to
being
do.
drill. I don't have enough information on that. I'm not going to say whether I totally subscribe to that. But one thing I might
one of the things that could point to that is, for instance, when you talk about Amalgam Virgo, it's not just the cover. You should go check everything out. For instance, when I talked to Schaefer, we talk about what he was doing, and he was doing, cybersecurity back in the day with a bunch of things that were classified, right? That now some of the stuff has even been commercialized, right?
Oh yeah, it's out there as part of books or part of TV series or whatever.
Technology itself was stuff that was classified software, hardware that later on becomes commercialized. So in the Amalgam Virgo documents, there's a bunch of drone stuff going on outside of the hijackings. There's blue teams, there's red teams.
Right.
And then there's a bunch of surveillance equipment and drone equipment and different staffing. So there is the possibility. I brought this up when I talked to.
There were a number of different exercises regarding number of issues. One was, as you brought up, Amalgam Virgo, but there was Amalgam Virgo 1, Amalgam Virgo 2, Global Guardian, Vigilant Guardian. There were a number of exercises, but they all encompassed different areas. So in other words, one issue was about a hijacking from Russia that was coming through Canadian airspace inside the United States. Another one was a drone airliner carrying a nuclear weapon. There were different areas, but there was one that was run in June of 2001, I think. Maybe it was Amalgam Virgo 1, 2. The 9/11 Commission covered this, and it showed Bin Laden's face regarding a hijacking of a plane with bombs on the plane and crashing into Langley, Virginia, or something like this. The one thing none of these exercises mimicked was the one issue that was known to the FAA, known to the FBI, because years prior, the Philippines National Police interviewed an individual by the name of Abdullah Kimarad regarding Bajinka plot, who I can always say the only people talking about it currently are us two. Basically, this is where the 9/11 operation came from, regarding manually hijacking the planes and crashing them all over intercontinental United States, regarding not 4 planes, but 10 planes. That you don't even bring up regarding the issue.
And this is what those training exercises were for. They were there to prepare for that, mostly coming in from overseas, intercontinental. Right. They weren't trained to deal with the scenario of it going to be all in the continent itself as a Trojan horse.
Right. And they were, even though the information was there, and even Bob Kerry of the 9/11 Commission, I played this video ad nauseum, I'm not going to play it anymore, where he actually talks with Monty Belger, the acting director of the FAA, and says, why would you think that this would be an outside attack? He goes, there were threats to domestic flights for years, and that this information was shared to you, and that they were involving Al-Qaeda. That's the real fucking conspiracy. The conspiracy, Bermas, is that they knew there was a threat to domestic airlines from Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, and they did nothing to stricter security measures regarding flight decks and cabin doors and whatnot.
Or change the security drills, all the training exercises. They didn't change the training exercises. They were using the same ones year after year. They never did train really overseas on the continent, even though it would be complicated because you have such heavy aviation traffic, but they never did,
Correct. Right. And then it makes you wonder, why didn't they do this? Was it about spending money? Was it about bureaucracy? Could be a mixture of these things. But while at the same time, while all this is going on, Jason, is that you had foreign intelligence and domestic intelligence actually listening into the phone calls of Al-Qaeda all around the world as far back as 1996 with their monitoring of the Al-Qaeda communications hub in Sana'a, Yemen. So God knows what they were talking about in the phone. They're talking about what? Operations? Well, who knows, right? But just think outside the box for 1 second. Stop with these, very simple and infantile theories about drone airliners and
fantastical
living hijack. Oh my God, it's maddening to think this way. Bermas, me and Nelson are not defenders of this official narrative that you think exists. There is none.
Yeah.
We are people that entertain conspiracy theories regarding domestic and foreign intelligence pre 9/11. And this is where we concentrate on. And it doesn't just start with 9/11. It goes all the way back.
And especially cover-ups.
I mean, with 93, with the Abu Nidal organization, all of this actually has a connection to it. But if it's too complicated for you, it's not, all right? Because you yourself has entertained these areas. But I think for me, Jason, and Nelson, I want to get your thoughts. For you, Jason, I think you listen to the wrong people. And one of those people is Alex Jones.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to say, look, Jason, I'm willing to throw out the olive branch. I've been trying to do that with you for years. But if you ever watch this video, I am more than willing to sit with you in a room and talk with you. Nelson?
Well, I mean, look, for Jason, look, you're contradicting yourself here because you're already going into the part of like entertaining hoaxes. But if anybody goes back and watches the beginning of this interview you did with Mike, you're already talking about the Middle East. You're talking about the Islamic threat and, that real terrorism is happening. Okay. So why didn't it just happen here in 2001? So now it's only happening over there? Now it happened and it's real? It was real before 9/11. There were real terrorist threats. There were real hijackings that happened. Not a lot in the U.S., but a hell of a lot over in Europe and the third world countries. But then, you just give 2001 a clearance. Oh, it's a hoax done by the U.S. government. Come on, dude.
It's right there in front of your face, and it's basically. I never could understand this regarding these 9/11 truthers. It's some of them that basically say that hijackers could not fly planes on September 11, 2001, but there's no question regarding them hijacking planes, as you mentioned, regarding, say, Hezbollah or Imad Mughniya's operation or Abu Nidal goes all the way back to A&O.
Yeah, or PFLP, all the PLO, all the, yeah. Yeah.
So, for me, Jason, I mean, there is conspiracy. There's plenty of it. It's just that you entertain the conspiracies that were echoed by people even that predate you.
Schaefer
with an agenda.
I had a friend of mine post 9/11 that he did the National Guard thing. He went overseas, did his time over there, but then he was like in and out of ICE and the TSA and all these things. So he saw the border issue and he saw the issues inside. And he goes, whenever they were running a drill, whether it was the FBI, the NSA, CIA, whatever, or private contractor, and they wanted to get weapons through the TSA, guess what? They got them through. And one of the things that is really not discussed, there's still this fiction out there that it was box cutters. It's not real, everybody.
Oh, it's knives.
Well, more than knives.
Maybe a gun.
I mean, again, through those dark overlord documents on Flight 11, the initial attack, you not only have the Daniel Llewellyn, you have a gun that's allegedly been used, but you have the individual that's reported the gun and the person that took that phone call, his name. And that was the first time I'd ever seen the individual that actually took the phone call about the gun.
Nelson, boy, oh boy. And I don't know.
Alleged gun.
I'm a little bit before the Dark Overlord. I've heard about this. But Nelson and myself and Paul Thompson and Kevin Fenton, we've been saying this for fucking years regarding weapons on planes. Nelson made a huge film based on this, no less. So, go ahead, Nelson.
And the film I did, Inside Job, Boston Logan 9/11. It's funny. He's saying, the box cutters is bogus right here. But then he's talking about the gun bringing up that, and it's alleged gun,
Right.
And then he's also talking about the TSA that they could bring in weapons before because the TSA started after 9/11 anyways, but through the regular airport screening, passenger security that they could bring weapons on like that. But here's the ironic thing. The guy has the film Empire Unmasked. He references a Time article that was on the web. It's not even on a printed Time article, a piece, but it's talking about Inside Job at Boston Logan, right? And I read the whole article much more in depth than Jason does on my film. And it's even saying in there, that the hijackers may have had access through the internal security, not through the passenger security, within the airport employees and staff.
Argon Bright
and
security.
It's like, Argon Bright was one of the main ones. People always try to talk about the other one that's Israeli based. What is it? I forget.
Oh shit! Yeah. Fuck. Troll? No. Secure? No.
Not Securicom. That still plays into Argon Bright.
Yeah, right. I can't remember. I can't. Shit.
Yeah, I have it on top of my head. It'll come back to me. But no, but the point being is that they could bring weapons like that, but they you reading an article that you've referenced before, it's clearly admitting that these hijackers had inside help from the airports, but he's leaving that out completely, and I can make a case that some of the hijackers may have even dressed up like airline pilots and airplane employees and were able to access and put weapons on like guns and all that. But of course, Jason wants to turn this into an entire hoax. And thankfully, Mike is going to, show his rationale on this pretty soon. Anyways.
Yeah, right. We're going to play that in a minute. This is the document regarding the draft report from the American Airlines Flight 11 incident, where basically you could see that the flight then, I think it says, descended with no communication from flight crew members. The passenger killed was Daniel Lewin, a shot by Passenger Satam Al-Saskami, who was sitting right behind him.
Yeah.
One bullet was reported to have been fired. The flight headed in the direction of JFK at 9:25 a.m. That's what Jason Bermas was referring to, this article. But again, Nelson just brought up before the miraculous point of irony here, and also shows the hypocritical nature of Jason Bermas, is that the box cutter story is false. Why would you go there? Yeah, box cutters were used, but so were long knives and guns. In fact, Flight 11 wasn't the only one that had a gun.
I don't think box cutters were used at all. Yeah. I don't. That's only a warped story that starts from Barbara Olson and Ted Olson from Flight 77, from plastic type knives to box cutters. Yet while Barbara Olson, spoke to the AT&T operator and said the hijackers had knives and guns.
Knives and guns, right? And guns, by the way.
Yeah,
one of the very first times I ever met Nelson here was many years ago. I think it was 2017, I want to say. And actually, we were talking about additional weapons on additional planes, and I brought up an article from CNN, and we had a long conversation about that. And CNN was right. They actually brought us days after 9/11. And this is for the historical record, where they actually said that there was a number of different flights that later on had these knives and that were taped in the backs of food trays. I think one was a makeshift bomb or something like that, to this nature. And then there was a number of arrests. Again, Nelson is the only person I know that even brings up the additional arrests when they opened up.
They completely leave that one out. I was only disappointed that Mike didn't bring that up. But anyways, go ahead.
He probably forgotten all about
it. Yeah, I don't blame him. Yeah,
it's understandable.
I remember years and years ago when I was reading that document on air. So there's another report out there that nobody talked about. They found weapons on other planes.
Yes, like Flight 23. They're underneath the seats. And then, I think that's the same one where the guys ran off and they never caught up with them, or they did and they never went into the details. I did a great podcast with Adam Fitzgerald about that.
They did supposedly catch up with them later, but the other odd thing was they had luggage that was the same as like the luggage that didn't make it on the plane with Atta. Right,
with manuals on it and maybe last will and stuff pointing directly. Yeah, hey, here we are. But the point I wanted to make earlier, Jason.
Wait a minute. Stop right there.
Because Mike's trying to bring the reality of that actually happening, and Jason's over there trying to poo-poo it as it's a hoax. It's his phantom theory of Flight 23 that it's a phantom like this. That they caught up to the guys. No, we don't. You guys, because you don't even know about what happens on September 13th, so you don't know what you're talking about. It's just, it's not the same thing, leaving the luggage and all that other stuff, that may have actually really happened, especially if Atta went on as a pilot, right? He wouldn't need that luggage. He would have left it there. Which is exactly what I believe happened. That's why there's luggage there left over of him. because he got there, went around to wherever he needed to go to, changed as a pilot, went into the boarding area for the crew where they were going to go, and that's it. That's why there is a bag there left over him. It isn't the same thing with Flight 23. He's trying to make it like, oh, they just wanted to set up and make it appear that there were extra planes. Okay, if they were going to do that, why isn't it in the 9/11 Commission report?
Correct. And now look, I'll even throw in another scenario too. Have you ever been on a connecting flight, Jason, where you just are about to miss the flight? Because sometimes the gates further away from the connecting flight, and maybe the luggage didn't get there in time, whatnot. Remember, they took a connecting flight, and they almost missed that flight, according to a ticket agent named Vaughn Alex. He actually asked Mohammed out there, "You're cutting it close." I'm sorry, it was Richard 2A, I think.
It was the Salem brothers.
Yes, that's right.
Al-Hazmi, I'm sorry, the Al-Hazmi brothers, yeah.
That's correct. And he basically says, hey, you're cutting it close, meaning they were just minutes away from missing a connecting flight. So that, that itself, but also you're overlooking something here, and it's understandable. It's not a big story, and very few people, including yours truly right there, Nelson Martin's, the only people that I know that brings up the issue of the names on the piece of paper that was found in the fucking car, where me and Nelson's theorize, and this is what I think happened, and Nelson, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is that the names of the people involved with the plane's operation was much more than 19. And that's the reason why they went to Portland. Why would they go to Portland to begin with?
Oh, that's not Von Alex. That was not Von Alex. Von Alex was in Dulles, so you were right. It's Atta and Al. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Dulles.
No, it was a mix-up. It was a mix-up. Right. Atta.
You're right. It was Atta and
right.
Yeah.
Right. They go to Portland. They stay there. You know the story because
exactly. They're rendezvousing with people crossing over from Canada by ferry and through borders.
Correct.
Yes.
Who are these people? Well, we theorize these are the people involved with the additional hijacking the planes later on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, hey, listen, you don't have to go by me, Jason. Bob Graham even says this, and he's the co-chair of the Joint House Inquiry. He even admits that we knew about the additional planes. Hey, that's not in the Joint Inquiry. That's not in the 9/11 Commission. Why not? Does it not fit in with the story of the 19? Or as the media will report, hijackers between, I think he said that there were 4, 3, and 6 on each plane. Where do you think he got that from? Because those are the exact numbers of the people who called on the planes, and you claimed that they couldn't have called. Because the real conspiracy is that, hey, there might have been 3 on 93. There were 6 on Flight 77. Hey, guess who did a film on that? And the very first film I ever saw from Nelson, 6 on 77. That was I didn't even know that. And that comes from a phone call from Renee May. And Nelson, this is another part of the conspiracy people tend to ignore altogether.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say other than, Jason, this should just prove to you that we are not defenders of any official narrative, but we actually cover the actual conspiracies involving 9/11, and they're much more interesting than the conspiracies that you're propagating here.
Maybe this could go hand in hand with the drill, but the notion that many of the hijackers probably didn't even know that it was a suicide mission. They probably may have thought, we're going to make demands, we're going to land, this is going to be a traditional thing.
Mike's right.
It's quite possible that the so-called muscle hijackers, or many of them, didn't know that this was going to be a direct suicide mission.
Right.
Mike's all solid.
He's some of the surveillance.
Yeah, what'd you say, Nelson?
Mike's all solid. He's down to earth.
Yeah, Mike's the man.
Photos from Maine. I think it was Atta was up there. I forget who he met or who he was up there with. Was it El Shehi or
Abdulaziz Al-Amari?
But there's like photos of them, and he's like smiling, because he doesn't have this.
Jason's there just trying to poo-poo it all, like I don't know hijackers.
Right.
Yeah.
Like why? He's touching on a really big conspiracy that nobody talks about, by the way. He's right there, and look at Jason. It's like this is not. Oh my God.
Those are so grainy. All those photos and those
photos from Portland.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, like there's so much there. It's funny. Like I had Kevin Shipp on the show,
All right, wait a minute. Time out. Fuck that, Jason. They interviewed the ticket agent, Richard Touay. He has a fucking hour-long video where he's being interviewed by some news station, and he's telling you, hey, listen, I saw these guys. I gave them their boarding passes. And if that's not a ticket agent from Dulles, you have Vaughn Alex that basically says, I looked at Muhammad Atta. It's the same guy as seen in the fucking photos. Is everyone in on it?
Yeah.
It just grinds my gears that you still go down this road of like, oh, these guys aren't really the hijackers themselves. Well, then, if that's the case, Jason, why haven't you gone to court with this newfound information? It's just Nelson.
I know.
Yeah.
Right. He's an ex-CIA guy. I'm sure you're aware of Kevin Shipp.
Name sounds familiar.
He's done some of these lectures or whatever, and he's still feeding the idea that some of the hijackers are alive and gave interviews after the fact. And I've seen some of the interviews. I've seen like the interview with the one guy, and they just happen to have the same name. They didn't have the same picture, et cetera, et cetera.
Hold on. Of course, a CIA guy is going to propose the outrageous theories to cover up what? That they were involved with the monitoring certain hijackers inside the United States because it was illegal to do so, and it came out through the Canistrell document that there was an illegal operation involving CIA and Saudi intelligence regarding monitoring of certain hijackers inside the United States that wasn't shared with the FBI or the State Department. Of course, Kevin Shipp is going to tell you that the hijackers are alive. You know who says that too? Kevin Ryan. And Kevin Ryan thinks I'm a CIA case officer.
Yeah. So does Barbara Honegger.
Right.
The nut that worked at the White House.
Yeah. You did a huge. I'll never forget that one article you showed me of Barbara Honegger dressed as a giant bunny. Remember that?
Oh yeah, dude. I was just thinking about that the other day. I was just like, God, that's so embarrassing.
God, dude, I still have that picture. It's one of the greatest things you ever gave me. It's just, oh my God.
That seems debunked. Now I don't know if that person again is ignorant. He's there to poison the pot. He seems genuine. I don't know.
Yes.
I'm not trust the plan. I'm trust no one, baby. I'm
trust the evidence.
No, you trust Jones.
Mike. I love Mike, man.
What do you say?
Yeah, trust the evidence is fucking right, Mike.
Yeah, exactly.
And then like Atta's father saying, "I got a call from my son afterwards," right? So
and it wasn't just like that was being reported. You watched the video of him in front of the media talking about that. Now, again, I don't speak Farsi, but I don't think that one was misreported time and time again.
Yeah, but then, I mean, of course, his father even retracts that later and basically says that he has a personal hatred of Jews, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows? Look, man, I think there's a lot there. I think some of the bin Laden, like, for instance, let's talk about some of the conspiracy theories I think that got out of hand and were total Johnny nonsense. For instance, when everybody was wearing a mask, Joe Biden was always wearing a mask. It wasn't just a senile dementia patient out there. Clearly it was. But you had the mask feeling, right? I look at least one of those bin Laden videos, and that looks like one of the CIA masks to me.
The face mask, yeah.
Yes, which is real. See, that's the thing.
Oh, yeah, there's a woman who went to the White House when Bush was in power and totally fooled George. There's a whole article about that.
You motherfucker. Let me bring this up to you, Jason, all right? Imagine you're a CIA case officer wearing a bin Laden mask, right? And it's fake. And you actually are suggesting that Al-Qaeda hierarchy, which are still alive at this point, Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri and others, basically looked at this and said, oh, this is a fake. We could tell who bin Laden is and basically who isn't, right? We just this and that. Now, Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri wrote a book called Nights Under the Prophet's Banner. It's in Arabic, but I got an English translated version of it. And basically what he says in the book is something that he brings up years prior to 9/11, that Western intelligence were the primary sources of misinformation regarding bin Laden, because what they wanted to do was demonize his role as an international terrorist into some like crackpot who watched Loose Change, and that's one of the films that they got out of the Abbottabad bunker and porn videos and whatnot. This is all basically just to keep him, oh, he was a stupid, dumb terrorist. Well, if you take the testimonies of people that knew him personally, they said he was the complete opposite. He was a very shrewd man, but he was very shy. But he wasn't stupid. And he didn't watch porn or nothing like that. He considered it haram. It's a sin in Islam. Even though he's not Islamic, he's a hypocrite. But nevertheless, Jason Bermas, I find that to be, really ridiculous on your part to suggest that, the CIA in this case is actually telling the truth about fake bin Laden videos and the living hijackers part, because it reinforces your worldview regarding these. Because it's what you.
He's even doubt, but I think Jason's even doubting that the living claim. Anyways, he just doesn't think that even matters. They weren't even involved. They weren't even here.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. That's what I think. That's what I'm assuming. Yeah, that's the impression I take.
Well, then, all right. So in that case. But it reinforces his worldview, because he doesn't think that the planes were basically fully hijacked and crashed with the word.
Yeah, exactly.
He said this on. Remember Reed Coverdale's interview?
Yeah. He still stands behind the whole thing that all the passengers landed at which airport is it? The one where Delta 1989 landed.
Yeah, that was.
And they were all put into a bunker.
Right.
You're
right.
Yeah, that's what he's still. Yeah.
That's right. I forgot all about that.
Bush 1. Not Bush 2, Bush 1. We're talking 80s.
Cincinnati.
Yes, and it was very convincing. I'm also, one of the things, even as a kid, I used to watch, what is it? Who was Spock? Leonard, what's his Nimoy?
Leonard Nimoy.
Leonard Nimoy used to do this show on Nickelodeon, where they'd go in and do the practical special effects, right? And so I've always been into like practical special effects, makeup. To this day, if I see a documentary on something, there was always something off on the little hat bin Laden video. But just really, his face wasn't moving quite right. It didn't look quite right. And later on, they admitted, and when I say they, the Pentagon, the Defense Department, that they had made propaganda videos during the War of Terror in relation to Al-Qaeda, etc.
Well, what's the group here? What's the group that's connected to Israel that would get the stuff first before we got it? They always got the scoop on it. You know what I'm talking about? What is it?
Unit 802, is that what you're trying? Oh, you're talking about the surveillance companies that essentially were private companies that ran the phone lines back in the day. You're talking about Amdocs and Converse.
No. It was like almost a news organization, or like this group or this media group that would get that first look and the first access of like a new bin Laden tape or like a new terrorist
Army radio
before we would get it.
An Israeli company.
He's talking about. All right, he does give the answer. Somebody actually texts him site internet. By the way,
that's right. Yeah,
site gets their videos from where? Directly from Al-Qaeda's own media arm called As-Sahab. One thing about bin Laden was during the Afghan civil war, he knew the value of media and how to, try to regain recruits into Al-Qaeda. And one of them was to do propaganda videos. And so he created a section within Al-Qaeda called As-Sahab Media. And it's still in use today, actually. As-Sahab is still the media arm of Al-Qaeda. And that's where SITE got their information from. But if you have to pay for it. In fact, the same thing for SITE. And I think it's a lot of money to get like videos from there. But you don't even have to go that far. Go to nationalarchives.org. That's where I got a lot of my old Al-Qaeda videos from.
I have to look at what they're called. I may be ignorant of that one, sir.
Yeah, but they ended up being an Israeli group, so that was interesting. But I'm sorry, you were saying before about the one of the bin Laden things that just looked a little off to you.
I'm sure I could pull it up which one it is. Let's see which one I'm Bin Laden.
And we don't know when
talking
the
about
stuff was
the one
filmed
we
either.
saw on
And like you
TV.
said about the translation, he could be rattling off the menu at Arby's or something.
Actually, I'll tell you what. I typed in one, and like the fake one that I think is like the one they're showing all over the place. So we'll just go to it. Let me see. I want to do which one? Me and Star. We'll just do, I guess, this one. Oh, I've got the wrong one up. Hold on 1 second. Give me one second here.
If you want, is it if it's on YouTube or something, you can just okay, you can show it.
So the blue one here and this one, it's Little Happen Lot. This one right here. I mean, so watch that video, and for some reason, it doesn't remind me of this guy. Like it looks like it's like a mask. Like again, you look at these two videos. The one on the left here, this little guy. That seems like way more Bin Laden-y to me, but they were all really crappy quality. This is the days of 480p at best. Every time I saw this guy, something again, he didn't remind me of this guy right here.
Yeah, first of all, Jason Bermas is making the common mistake I hear all the time regarding calibration, video calibration. And you're comparing a video calibration of one video to a calibration of another video. In fact, one video he's showing here, this is the U.S. invading Afghanistan. In this video, it's a live feed. It's a live video feed. Whereas the blue screen background is basically personal a camcorder. So there's going to have different bit rates. And it's going to make him look like he's fatter or the nose is longer, but it's still him. I mean, I just...
Nice Grecian. He's getting his dialysis. He went...
What's that?
Well, just to defend that, I mean, yeah, there was a Spy Talk article from Washington Post from 07, 08, maybe 09, where they admitted that they made some fake Bin Laden videos. The CIA did. That they also talked about making fake videos of Saddam being gay as well.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
right.
So it's like, okay, yeah, just to nail it at the end, that pretty much it's like, yeah, this could have been one of those fake ones from then, right? Because, well, I mean, it is odd that he cut his beard short and it's looked like it's dyed in color, or it's a recording from earlier, but apparently it's not based on the things that he says, or he really did cut it short, or it really is fake, but maybe, but I tend to think, he probably trimmed his beard, dyed it black, and, even if the CIA did fake it, that does not, he obviously Bin Laden hid for years. He didn't do anything for years on end, right. Yet he was still discovered, in 2012, 2013, I'm almost forgetting now. 2011, he was still found and they killed him. He's dead. Right. So it's like, regardless if that was fake or not, that does not support his argument that he's ultimately trying to make, that even the raid is fake. Yeah,
I think that's a good point. Let me talk about this too for just a little bit. It's let's entertain that that's true, that the CIA had made these videos regarding Bin Laden, and it goes right back to
because this is around 2004. And it does make sense. They did appear. This is right when Bush was running, and it was to help to keep Bush in office. So I can see that argument. Yeah,
Right. So, but here's the thing. This is where it gets me, because, again, this goes back to integrity, right?
Yeah.
For me personally, I like to when I speculate, I'll announce that I'm speculating. Like I'll say, hey, listen, I don't have evidence for this, but this is my theory, and I'll tell you why. Right. When Jason Bermas announces, like, say, the CIA made these videos, it's a definitive statement, but he can't prove it. He can't just say, now, even though it goes back to your point, Nelson, regarding the CIA producing fake videos, especially I remember with Saddam Hussein. All right, let's just say that's true with Bin Laden too, right? But at least have the courtesy to inform your own audience, not for me, not for Nelson, but your own audience, Jason, because that's what this is what matters, right? To say that, hey, listen, I don't have evidence of this, but I think that these videos are fake, and let me tell you why, right? Because what it basically does is this. It allows for the audience to basically say, all right, this may not be true or not. But for you to sit there, and this is a big pet peeve for me, this is really anal, is that I think information is power, and power belongs in the hands of the people. And if you're going to go and use speculation or conjecture as a form of evidence, you're misleading your audience. And that's where, like Nelson said earlier, in the future, we're just going to keep making videos of you. In that, because we have to uphold to a standard of journalism and reporting to the highest honors, because the 9/11 truthers themselves have destroyed this. Now, at least with the media, we know what side they're standing on. But you're supposed to be on our side. And when you make a mockery of journalism and reporting and independent research, you're making a mockery of us. Now, you may not see it that way because you're acting as your own man. But in the broader spectrum regarding the public's perception of us, this is what happens. Because Nelson and myself have to go on the defense and say, hey, we're not crackpots. Have you ever had this problem before?
Yeah. I when I'm trying to get people to watch my new films and they don't know who I am, and especially if they're like on the normal side and they kind of like think there's a little bit things wrong with 9/11, I have to make all these disclaimers. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's a waste of time because your reputation speaks for itself, for me anyway. But
Yeah,
well,
that's the reason why I changed my channel from 9/11 True Crimes from Truther TV. I had to because I would get that automatic question when they saw that my channel was called Truther TV,
Right.
So I wasn't being taken serious,
Yeah, and right, and that's exactly the point I'm trying to raise here with Jason Bermas, is that you represent all of us regarding talking about this issue because you're allegedly a truther. Well, I like to think that Nelson and myself, we're truthers in a certain respect, that we report earnestly and honestly.
Yeah, but we're skeptics now. We decided to make it wedge. Yeah.
So this is near the end of the video. This is what he has to say.
Got his beard dyed. Oh, you know what I was thinking of, Bermas? It's called Site, SITE, with Ritz Katz.
Okay.
Eric just sent this to me. So it's called Site, which is the group or the organization that's Israeli, and that's I guess the person connected to that. So.
And that was basically it. That was the whole issue regarding Jason Bermas and 9/11 and the 9/3 bombing. And again, Nelson, I'll give you the last word. Here we have Jason Bermas propagating the same old theories regarding loose change, and he's never corrected the issue. And even in that challenge that we played in the beginning, hey, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I like to be corrected. All right, Nelson, what do you say to that?
He doesn't. He's full of shit as far as that goes. He doesn't want to be corrected. He's got too much online. I mean, invested already with loose change, and he has to keep that narrative. He doesn't want to, he doesn't want to be corrected, and it would be wise to be corrected, because if he came out publicly saying, I was wrong with a lot of things on loose change and all that, that would hit news. That would, that would break news. That would probably draw more people to gravitate to him, and resurrect the whole thing. And right now, that part of 9/11 does need to be, needs some revamping. It needs some spin going,
Yeah.
And it would just be better benefit him and benefit a lot of other people, that's all I really got to say about that. I'm glad Mike did this interview. Mike was trying to be sensible. I know Mike doesn't really try to be as confrontational,
right?
But I know Mike is not one of the, he's not really completely behind loose change. I already know that the Jackman twins, they one of the reasons why they fell out with the Truth Movement, the local group they were involved with, is they started figuring out that the Pentagon attack was real, and as soon as they were addressing it to their leaders there, they were getting a lot of, bark back and stuff. And then they didn't want to even be involved with the group anymore. Yeah. So, kudos to Mike. I'm glad Mike did this. And, we'll see how it happens, in the future.
By the way, Nelson, what projects are you working on right now?
I'm still working on a book with Nick Berg. I'm reading some other books. Film project wise, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I don't know if we're going to do an updated version with Dulles the Dulles Airport cover up, 6 on 77 with all the unreleased security videos, which I mean, that's something I wanted to do with you. I don't know if I'm gonna do the Pan Am film this year. I'm trying to think. I have other things, you know, I still wanted to continue with the Urban Truth 9/11 Myths film series, but I still need some help with that. I still have some other continuing subjects, but other than that, I do keep things busy more so with Patreon. I at least try to put something out every month. So people really want to see what I can do and what I do more regularly, then become a Patreon or even YouTube membership as well. Although Patreon, you get more stuff than on YouTube membership, but yeah.
Right. I'm going to put that in the description anyway. So
cool.
Nelson, it was great doing this with you.
Yeah, it was cool. Been a long time to do these a little bit more often.
Yeah, maybe so. And from what I've been told, maybe in the future we might have to do something with Richard Gage, because according to what I found out, and right now it's up in the air, the Trump administration may be contacting Richard Gage and 9/11 Group regarding heading an investigation into 9/11.
Yeah, you know how I feel. But here's the thing, you know, I wish we could probably had time to get into it more. You know, what's his face? The congressman, senator, what's his name that they talked about? Huh?
Kurt Weldon.
Yes, that's good. But Kurt Weldon was more like talking with the firefighters, you know, because John Gold showed me a video he did years ago interviewing him, and it was recording him, and he was talking about this stuff about being open to explosives, you know, something else being inside the Twin Towers and all that. But yeah, you'd have to run it by him. You'd have to show him stories like, stories like with Ronald Bucca, you know, stories like especially the reporting with Magic Heating and Air, you know, Denko Mechanical and all that. That's where it needs to go. Not this whole bullshit with fucking nanothermite, because they're not going to prove any of that. And especially Building 7. Waste of time there, you know? So, it's like who's going to reach Kurt Weldon with these things, you know, with these, you know, other alternative theories about that, because they're going to only still stick to this domesticated, fantastical shadow government BS.
Yes.
You know, that's the thing.
Well, I'll end it like this. Look, Richard, Jason Bermas, again, olive branch to you regarding a future discussion. We don't have to record it. If you just want to talk with us, I'm more than open to that discussion. But if not, and you're going to continue, propagating these false theories regarding 9/11, we're going to be addressing it, because we feel that misinformation is prominent within the 9/11 spectrum, unfortunately, and we love to address these issues, to correct these issues in the hopes of educating the public regarding this issue, because I don't think you would disagree with this, is that we too want justice regarding the victims' families, regarding the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and their civil suit in the Southern District of New York. But you can't do that when you have so much misinformation and you don't know what to believe and what to know. So my olive branch is still extending out to you regarding. Okay, guys, thank you very much for watching us today, and we'll see you next video. Have a great weekend, everybody.